What's up guys, welcome to the channel. New video today, and today we're going to talk about support and resistance. So a very beginner video, but also if you're an expert or you trade for years, maybe there are some misconceptions you should know about. But like and subscribe, we really appreciate that. We're already above the 100 subscribers, let's keep going, so really appreciate that. And if you're a beginner, make sure to check more on the channel because we have a lot of educational content. Now this video is about, I'll ask 5 traders to draw support and resistance on a chart. Because if I just ask people to do it, they would have different charts, different prices, different rules, whatever. So I sent this image, and during the live session I told, tell me where you should draw support, resistance, whatever. So we're on Bitcoin, we're on the 1 hour time frame, but that doesn't really matter that much. I ordered 5 beginners from best in my opinion to worst. But let me tell you, there are no mistakes here. It's not like someone drew support in the middle of a zone or anything. It's just the worst to the best, and I'm going to give my explanation. If you're at chart 2, I'm going to start from the worst up to the top. If you think chart 2, that's where I would draw support and resistance. That's, if you ask me draw support and resistance, that's what I would do. That's not wrong, but just listen to the other charts and let me tell you where you could improve. Alright, let's get into it. So this is the blank chart. Again, Bitcoin 1 hour time frame, but it does not matter that much. Now, the first one, and that was very simple, he just said this: support and resistance. And this might be the only one that is a little bit wrong, and let me tell you why. Support and resistance are first of all not just the top and the bottom. I understand when you learn support and resistance, people tell you, look at the top of the range and the bottom of the range and indicate it, which is true, but support and resistance is not the one single line that's the top and the bottom. You just indicated the range, which is good for you, I guess, but you can see the range without these lines. You know, price stops there, price stops there. So I wouldn't say this is completely wrong, but this is not showing support and resistance. This has nothing to do with support and resistance, and even people trade using only support and resistance. Sorry that I keep repeating that, but you can't even trade off this. So this would be the only chart that I would say is semi-wrong, but for a beginner, it's a start. You start with the highs and the lows. Now here's the second chart, and this is actually, I guess, what you learn in beginner courses on YouTube, whatever. Draw support and resistance. You draw a box on the top and a box in the bottom, and I think this is perfectly fine illustrated. He didn't take the exact top or the exact thing because, as I mentioned several times, support and resistance is not one level, it's a zone, and I think it's perfectly demonstrated here. You have a zone at the top, resistance. You see that even price responds to it, so it's not like he drew it here and then you see prices going through it, and he drew it here, support. So this is, I think, very valid. Surely for a beginner, if you can draw this, then you probably already understand the concept of support and resistance. But for more experienced traders, or if you want to get actually into trading, you learn the theory and then you want to get into trading, this is not enough information. You need to start trading. Now this is a third chart, and I just mentioned in the second chart that he didn't draw all the boxes in the middle, so we understand support and resistance. And now you see those boxes in the middle. I still put this ahead of the last one because of course it's the same. Top resistance, bottom support, that's perfectly fine. And he added these boxes. And I think that's important to know. Surely in a 1 hour time frame, 4 hour time frame daily, again, I mentioned it's not that relevant, but still, it's important to know that top and bottom, that's not everything. I mean, if you're going to wait until price goes to the top or to the bottom, you're going to wait more than you actually trade. So that's why this is also valid, because here you indicated resistance, which is true. You have your drop off point here, and then resistance, price interacts with it, price goes through it, but that doesn't matter because he stops it here. It's not like this is the entire range. And then here, price makes a pullback compared to what we've seen in the previous candles, and then gains, makes a new high, come back to this, so this is support, it taps this twice, and it goes back to this resistance. So this is a perfectly chart, and I think you could not necessarily trade with it, but do more with it, because if you can already understand and comprehend that, okay, we don't have just top and bottom, we have in the middle of the range also support zones and resistance zones, then we know, oh, we made a new high here, so in this zone they support liquidity. I'm not going to talk too much about liquidity because it can be confusing for beginners, but if you're more advanced, you know what I mean with liquidity. This is the liquidity zone, price can come back and you can long there. So from this setup, this is the third chart, I believe, you can perfectly take a trade already. This analysis is very good, and if you're a beginner and you can already do this, I'd say you're doing very well. Alright, this is the fourth chart, and I'd say it's pretty on par with the third chart. There are not many differences, let me show you it. It's just that you have resistance here, support here, and here you have 2 lines. This one is running through and this one is also basically the same. The only thing is it's smaller, and that's what I also like to see. Also, these boxes are smaller and it doesn't matter anything because you just indicate something. It's not like you're putting your limit orders there, you're just indicating a zone, so it's not that important. But still, I would not make a box from here fully to here and say this is all support. Make a box as small as possible just to indicate where price might pull back to or where price find difficulties to gain. And then the other two differences is this one, and this is a perfect example of how resistance, because we make a new low here and then you have this range from the drop off to finally the gaining of the drop off. This is a range and you see that there's resistance in this range. But then, and I've perfectly explained this in the beginner course, support and resistance, so make sure to check that if you're not familiar with these, which is no problem of course. Then you see that that resistance turns into support in the next zone. So that is perfectly illustrated here. Is it that important? No, I don't really personally like having levels that already been hit with candlesticks through it that still have going. Like, I don't like that personally, but it's still slightly better than the previous one, because here the person clearly understands that support can become resistance or vice versa. And also, which is important, I don't like it on the chart, maybe just a thing in my head, but if something breaks your level, if it's a line, if it's a zone, whatever, it's still valid sometimes. It's not like, oh, price is there, oh, buy level, we don't need it anymore. Sometimes price can still react to it, and that's a perfect example of support flipping into resistance or vice versa. Now, I understand if you think from the second, the third and the fourth, they're all basically a little bit the same. The boxes are smaller or bigger, a box is here, a box is there, and I understand there are no major differences, but that's also because support and resistance is nothing crazy. That's why I mentioned again, if you're a beginner and you can't do this or you think it's difficult, it really isn't. Just watch one simple tutorial, try this on yourself and you'll understand it. But from the fifth one and the last one, which was obviously the best in my opinion, I rated them at the start, that was the best. Let's see that, is with lines. And we still have those boxes here, but we also have lines. And why do we have lines? Now, I mentioned before that support and resistance are zones, they're not levels. So you may ask, why do you go back to lines? Because these lines are not indicating tops and lows. Top, no, not indicated. Bottom, not really indicated, with a box. And that's perfectly fine. You can illustrate the top of the zone and the bottom of the zone, or the main support and resistance with a box. Big box, even that doesn't really matter, that's your personal preference. But what I see here, the levels that he indicated here are valid levels. You see here, the gain and the hold, valid level. You gain this range, so you make a new high after this high in this range. Gain, hold, this is a valid level where the trade opportunity could be there. Reversal here, confirmation trade down when price goes back there. And that's why I really like this. The levels, the lines are just not top and bottom, which we saw in the first chart. These levels are actually failures, holds, origins, whatever. And if you're not familiar, you think these terms, you don't understand these terms, but they're all just terms to describe a level where we could look for a trade. So that's why I like this. Maybe this is more than just support and resistance. So I understand your standpoint if you're saying this is more than just draw support and resistance, because then I would just draw box, and maybe in the middle a few boxes. That's true, but still you need to ask yourself, if you make an analysis and someone asks you, or for yourself, you think you're going to indicate support and resistance, don't just draw a box there, draw a box there, because that has no value and you're just wasting time basically, or you feel like you're actually making an analysis, doing something. Well, that's just not true. With these levels, and this is also not just, as mentioned, drawing support and resistance, is also going into charting and making your analysis for a trade. But still, I really like this, and it's nothing spectacular. He didn't spend an hour doing this, just very easy, indicating these levels with support and resistance, and that's it. Now, the main takeaway is support and resistance is very easy for beginners, for advanced people, and many people don't even use it in a strategy. It's just a very simple concept to understand with buyers and sellers at the start of your trading journey. But as you can see, also some tips, don't just indicate the top and the bottom, don't just put a big box. Try to think about what you're actually doing, because you're not just drawing support and resistance at the top and the bottom. That's not the definition, and that's not what support and resistance means and why it exists. It exists because there are buy orders, sell orders, buyers, sellers, liquidity zones, whatever. So think about what you're doing and indicate more than just top and the bottom. But I think that was it. If you want to see more on the channel, there's tons of educational content on the channel, as well as in the server where we also hold trading live sessions, etc., all for free. So make sure to check that out in the description, and the course is available on the channel. Now I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.